Good evening. This is the World News at 6 on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. My name is Chioma Innocent, and here are the top stories. Israeli strike across Gaza kills 25 Palestinians. Court sentences Nnamdi Kanu to life imprisonment. All schools shut down in 4 Kwara LGAs amid potential terrorist attacks. An ADC blasts Tinubu government for linking Trump to terror attacks. Details now. The World News at 6 begins outside the shores of Nigeria, where at least 25 Palestinians were killed in Israeli strikes across the Gaza Strip on Wednesday, according to the Hamas-run health ministry, in what it said was one of the deadliest days since the ceasefire came into effect 5 weeks ago. 10 people were killed when the Ministry of Religious Endowments building in the eastern Zaytun neighborhood of Gaza City was hit, according to rescuers. Israel's military said it struck Hamas terrorist targets after gunmen opened fire towards an area where its soldiers were operating in the southern city of Khan Yunis in violation of the ceasefire deal. Hamas questioned the claim and denounced what it said was a dangerous escalation that could jeopardize the ceasefire. The flare-up of violence comes after the UN Security Council passed a resolution that endorsed U.S. President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan to end 2 years of devastating war. The attacks marked a sharp escalation after several days of relative calm. Back home in Nigeria, Justice James Omotosho says he sentenced Nnamdi Kanu to life imprisonment on counts 1, 4, 5, and 6 instead of a death sentence. Delivering judgment today, presiding judge cited prosecution evidence, including video interviews in which Nnamdi Kanu made violent threats against Nigeria and its citizens as the basis for the conviction. The court found Nnamdi Kanu guilty of counts 1 and 2 of making a series of broadcasts to incite violence and killings in furtherance of his separatist agitation for Biafra. The court held that the threat of violence and killings, including the declaration of sit at home in the southeast state in his many broadcasts, constitute acts of terrorism. It also found Nnamdi Kanu guilty on counts 4 and 5 of inciting violence during the #EndSARS protest, resulting in the killing of security personnel and the destruction of government properties in Lagos. The court also held that the IPOB leader was not denied a fair hearing as he claimed. Let's now take a listen to the Federal High Court today sentencing Nnamdi Kanu to life imprisonment.
Although I'm not really persuaded, but I must temper justice with mercy. The court is moved by chapter 23, verse 23 of Matthew, in the book of Matthew. So the first that, who unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithes of mint and anise and cumin, and has omitted the weightier matter of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. This ought you ought to have done, particularly, and must notice the word in Matthew 23 and verse 23, the word mercy. Our Lord himself is merciful. No matter what we do, is a merciful God. It is on that note that the court will follow this above admonition of Jesus Christ in the above passage and show mercy to the convicts. In addition, the death penalty globally is now being frowned upon by the international community. Consequently, and in the interest of justice, I hereby sentence the convicts to life imprisonment for the said counts 1, 4, 5, and 6 instead of death sentence. Life is sacred to God. With respect to count 3, he is hereby sentenced to 20 years imprisonment without no option of fine. For count 7, he sentenced to 5 years imprisonment without no option of fine. To extend the mercy, I hereby order that the sentence shall run concurrently. And due to the nature of the offences that borders on terrorism and the attitude, violent nature of the defendants that I have taken judicial notice. The last adjourned date, he was so unruly and expressed violence, even was about to beat the security officers there. This morning, he repeated same.
Still on the world news at 6, Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers have vowed to appeal his conviction, insisting that the judgment does not hold water. Addressing the press at the Federal High Court shortly after Justice James Omotosho delivered the judgment that sentenced Nnamdi Kanu to life imprisonment, his lawyer, Aloy Ejimako, who was at the court as a consultant, said they were heading to the upper court. He argued that a man cannot be convicted for mere spoken words, questioning why that should be the case at the Federal High Court. Let's now take a listen to Nnamdi Kanu's lawyer, Aloy Ejimako, speaking after the Federal High Court gave its judgment of life imprisonment on the IPOB leader earlier today.
Some of the reactions lead up that you heard.
To pursue a separate nation of yours is not a crime. So in Nigeria today, if somebody says don't be silly, you get convicted. Mazin Nnamdi Kanu may broadcast, and so what? And you convict him for terrorism for mere words in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What kind of precedent is being laid? So from here, we are heading to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal is the only court in this country, or the next court in this country, that sits as a jury. We are going to approach the justices there to check out what happened in court today. And we are pretty sure the justices will agree with us that today was the symbol of the travesty of justice that everybody has been suspecting all along. If the Court of Appeal disagrees with us, we head to the Supreme Court. But by God Almighty, Mazin Nnamdi Kanu is not going to stand convicted. Is going to get overturned. Thank you.
That was lawyer to Nnamdi Kanu, Aloy Ejimako, who actually was at the court today as a consultant, speaking after he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Meanwhile, all schools in 4 local government areas of Kwara State have been ordered to shut down by the government amid potential terrorist attacks. The Kwara State chapter of the Nigerian Union of Teachers disclosed this in a circular. The NUT chairman Yusuf Agbola said the schools shut down are in Isin, Irekpodun, Ifelodun and Ekiti local government areas over fears of attacks by terrorists. The closure was instructed by the Kwara State Ministry of Education and Human Capital Development over concerns about fresh security threats in Kwara South. School heads and teachers are expected to receive further directives about the situation. The closure was announced days after armed terrorists attacked a Christ Apostolic Church in Eruku, killing 3 worshippers and abducting several others. The closure was instructed by the Kwara State Ministry of Education and Human Capital Development over concerns about fresh security threats in Kwara South. School heads and teachers are expected to receive further directives about the situation. Meanwhile, the African Democratic Congress ADC has criticized the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, SGF, George Akume, for attributing recent terrorist attacks in Kebbi and Kwara State to remarks made by U.S. President Donald Trump. In a statement issued today by its National Publicity Secretary, Malam Bolaji Abdullahi, the ADC described Akume's comments as an amateurish deflection and a shameless attempt by the APC-led federal government to evade accountability. The ADC said it found Akume's position bizarre and utterly detached from Nigeria's security realities. The ADC said Nigerians have endured years of worsening insecurity, including mass abductions, killings, and attacks on schools and places of worship, noting that conditions have deteriorated further under the current administration. The party noted that it is disingenuous to blame one tweet for the state of insecurity in Nigeria. The ADC also accused the federal government of celebrating its electoral victory while the country is turned into a killing field. The ADC questioned how a government that claims to pride itself on sovereignty could attribute its internal security breakdown to the comments of a foreign leader. It challenged the government to reveal what threat evaluation or mitigation strategies it has put in place if it genuinely believed Trump's comment posed a security risk. I'm now being joined by legal luminary Barrister Fred Nzako for the analysis segment on the world news at 6 this evening. Barrister Fred Nzako, good evening to you and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been quite a day for the Nigerian judiciary and for many Nigerians who have been following closely the case of Nnamdi Kanu ever since what many have called his extraordinary rendition back to Nigeria to face trial on several counts of terrorism. The court today found him guilty and have sentenced him to life imprisonment. Many Nigerians have said they are not happy about this judgment. And his lawyers are saying, how exactly can they classify what he did as terrorism if all he did was speak some words? And also, he's been tied to the violence and conflicts that ensued during the hashtag #EndSARS protest, which resulted in the killing of security personnel and the destruction of government properties in Lagos. How do you weigh into the situation? Was it right of the court to tie him to the #EndSARS protests?
Well, an isolated case simply tells you that there's a lot of orchestration on this matter, and right from beginning. Recall that this ordeal started from 2015 when he was arrested and was not charged to court for many years. And eventually when he was charged to court, it took a long time before he could secure his bail. And when he was granted bail, Nigerian security agencies went to his place illegally and drove him away when he ran away for his dear life. As he ran away, they claimed he jumped bail, went to Kenya, kidnapped him in what is technically called extraordinary rendition, which is a criminal offense committed by a state that can be likened to a kidnap committed by an individual. He was brought back to Nigeria, and such extraordinary rendition has been roundly condemned both within and outside Nigeria. Again, he was taken to court, denied bail, and even denied access to regular correctional center. He was kept in very uncomfortable, inhuman environment in the custody of the SSS. And the trial now started. From time to time, the government through the SSS would change the charges. They continue to adjust the charges, and that was why the trial took such a long time. Eventually, when the hue and cry became so much, in between, he had gotten many judgments and orders of court, 9 in all, including the Court of Appeal of Nigeria, the Federal High Court, the State High Court, the ECOWAS Court, and the rest. Out of the 9, 4 from Nigeria, 5 from outside Nigeria, asking that he should be let off the hook. The government refused to obey the orders of court and continued in the trial, which so many people have termed illegitimate persecution and no longer logical, legitimate prosecution. Now the trial continued, and with all the theatrics that went along with it, whereby some judges they recused themselves, some others were forced to recuse themselves because of all the theatrics and the seemingly lack of confidence in the prosecution process. At the end of the day, the current judge, Mr. James Omotosho, decided to end it all. End it all, yet in a very controversial manner, the same controversial manner that the entire trial took. So at the end of the day, it lies in the mouth of anybody, the way and manner anybody feels that the trial went. Some people feel that it was not a trial, that it was a persecution. Some others feel, yes, he has had his day in court, and so what? Some others feel that there was no basis for charging him for terrorism because the ingredients of terrorism were not found around him. His lawyer, Mr. Lawyer Jimako, openly said terrorism. We had said in 2021, when he was a Southern intendant, that insult to president did not amount to terrorism because President Muhammad Buhari had charged him with terrorism, essentially because he insulted him and called him Jibril of Sudan. That was the beginning of his problem. And until the last day in office of President Buhari never forgave Nnamdi Kanu for saying that he was Jibril from Sudan. It was late for the system to find out the truth and let Nigeria know the truth. And today, the judge has made a lot of statements that gave an impression of premeditated judgment. Number one, the punishment for terrorism does not lie in the realm of quoting the scriptures. When the judge started quoting the scripture in Matthew 3:33, that life is precious and therefore he will not condemn him to death. If the punishment says death penalty, then why would you now pick and choose whether to condemn to death or whether to commit to life imprisonment? It's not the duty of the judge to do such commutal. If the law says that upon conviction that an accused is sentenced to death, then the judge should be bold enough to pronounce it. But for the judge to now on his own suo motu begin to commute the sentencing beyond what the law has prescribed simply tells you that there is guilty conscience somewhere. Secondly, the judge said that Nnamdi Kanu had always challenged the judge and the court to tell him the law under which he was being tried. There was Anti-Terrorism Prevention Act of 2011 that was repealed in April 2022 and replaced with Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act of 2022. And then Nnamdi Kanu said that the act with which he was being tried is not known to law. And the 7-count charge, up to today, I will admit that I have not seen the charge. I do not know the ingredients of the count. I've asked several questions. I've tried to even ask the media people. I've asked my colleagues in law, what were the ingredients of the charge that Nnamdi Kanu says is not known to law? And the court never addressed the issue. Now, keep that aside. Again, today, Nnamdi Kanu said that he was not given the opportunity to present his final address. And of course, it is his right to present his final written address. In litigation and in adjudication, whether criminal or civil, especially in criminal trials, both prosecution and the defense will present their final written address. In that final written address, the prosecution will try to convince the court to give judgment in their favor. The defense will try to convince the judge to give judgment in their favor. And then the judge will sit down, go through both, and then come to a middle point based on the provision of the law and the interest of justice. If Nnamdi Kanu was not allowed to present his final written address, it says a lot about the validity, the veracity, and the integrity of his trial. I do not have all the details, so I will not condemn the court. But based on what is in the public domain, Nnamdi Kanu said that he was not allowed to present his final address. So this is one of the grounds for appeal, which of course I'm sure that his lawyers would by now have started putting the books together to go on appeal. The next thing is that the court should make available timeously the certified true copy of this judgment that was presented today, so that his appeal would make meaningful progress when the time comes.
All right. Barrister Ferdinand Zako, at some point during the judgment today, the federal government demanded the death sentence for Nnamdi Kanu after his conviction, after he was convicted on all the 7-count charges bordering on terrorism. Although Justice James Omotosho says he recognizes the right to self-determination. Right. Now, also, at some point, Justice Awomolo also demanded the death sentence for Nnamdi Kanu after his conviction, also pleading he should be kept in the safest correctional center. When we look at the definition of terrorism, which is the use of violence, unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in trying to pursue a political aim, can we say that actually these charges that he is being convicted of, first of all, like he has consistently said, the court lacks the jurisdiction to try him, but according to the definition of the word terrorism itself, would you say that this what he's been tried on first up is wrong, and the federal government seeking death penalty, does that tell you that they are very serious about ending terrorism in Nigeria, or is it because it has to do with Nnamdi Kanu?
There is a mixture of politics and law in Nnamdi Kanu's trial, and there is a preponderance of politics more than law in his trial. I say this with all due respect and very advisedly, because the issue and the incidents of terrorism started by the inglorious, wicked nomenclature given to IPOB as a terrorist organization by President Muhammadu Buhari's government. On that basis, everything that is said to be around IPOB was now viewed by the state as that of a terrorist. Meanwhile, IPOB is only in Nigeria that IPOB is seen as a terrorist organization, only in Nigeria. Any other part of the country, the members and leaders of IPOB can go anywhere without such appendage of terrorism against their name. But the real terrorists recognized all over the world in Nigeria, they are nicknamed bandits, so that they will be taken away from the peering eyes of the international community. The United Nations Convention on Anti-Terrorism makes it mandatory that any terrorist can be attacked by any country. Any terrorist organization can be attacked by any country, because terrorism is an international crime against humanity. So the issue of sovereignty does not come up when you are dealing with terrorism issues. But when you come to Nigeria, Nigerian system, Nigerian political environment will spin the narrative, turn it upside down, and the terrorists will become bandits, and the civil agitators will become terrorists. Nnamdi Kanu is essentially a civil agitator, recognized by United Nations and the African Charter, and the rest of the world and the international community as a civil agitator that is non-violent. If you now begin to say that his word of mouth amounts to violence, then you are turning logic upside down. What Nnamdi Kanu has done is to use word of mouth to insult authorities in Nigeria. There is no hidden fact about it. And when there is such verbal insult, it is covered by Nigerian law under the law of tort. You take the person to court on civil wrong done against your integrity and against your person. It never comes under the criminal law. So what has happened is a complete trial of Nnamdi Kanu is a complete travesty of justice. Is a complete annihilation of justice. Is a complete turning justice on his head, because he was tried for offense that never existed based on his act, and even in the process, the entire process did not show that the trial was meritorious. The people who merit such trial are left to be moving up and down, even with their sophisticated ammunitions, being negotiated by the state, negotiated with government, being even paid compensation. And a man who leads an organization that is asking for only one thing, referendum. Let us determine our fate in this entity called Nigeria. and you term them terrorists. And because of such, naming the dog a bad name in order to hang it, that is the basis for which the government are just trying to land the Kanu for terrorism. And I can tell you that the rest of the international community, they are watching. Information that we have started getting from the national media said that Nigeria has just exposed their penchant for travesty of justice. There is no reasonable international media organization that has not picked hold with the judgment delivered on Nnamdi Kanu today. And again, to tell you that there is guilty conscience looking around somewhere, why would the judge make a pronouncement that Nnamdi Kanu should be kept in safe custody? Before, where would he have been kept? After the judgment, would he go home? After the judgment, he was supposed to go to correctional center. As a matter of fact, he was supposed to go to correctional center from the very day he was arraigned in court. That is the procedure, and that is the practice in Nigeria. It is a breach of procedure and a breach of the right of the citizen that after taking his plea in court, you still detain the person in the custody of the accuser. The accuser of Nnamdi Kanu is the SSS. You now give order to the SSS to still detain him. When we have correctional centers that could have as well kept him, where others who have taken their plea, including hardened criminals that have confessed to killing communities and villages, you will still keep them in correctional center. But you now keep a freedom fighter, a civil agitator, in a custody that is not known to law. The SSS is like a police custody because they are not meant to be kept, for people to be kept for long. They are not official correctional center. There's a difference between police cell and the cell of the correctional center. There's a difference between SSS custody and that of the correctional center. That is why somebody can stay in the correctional center all for over 50 years and still be alive. Nobody can stay in such a dungeon of the SSS or the police for some years without falling ill. And that is why the man continued to fall ill, and when he complained, again, Nigerian politics crept into the issue of his health. I think that there is too much politics on issues of Nnamdi Kanu, and the earlier the country respects human rights, human dignity, and approaches justice without politics, the better for the humanity of Nigeria.
Barrister Ferdinand Zako, you say that this issue is more like one that should have been a civil matter, since it was just like he insulted Buhari and insulted the federal government of Nigeria. But what the federal government council, what the judges, what the federal government lawyers are saying is that he advocated for violence against helpless Nigerians. He advocated for violence against Nigerian security agencies. And also, the judges also talked about his attitude towards lawyers right there in the court. There is with what happened in court today, there was a part where he was walking past the federal government lawyers and he said to them, he literally said to them, "God will punish you." That was what he said to them. They says he has habitually exhibited an unruly attitude. He has habitually abused the court processes. He has abused the lawyers, using harsh words on them, saying he's been really, really, really insulting. And in fact, the judges went ahead to say that he refused to respond to the broadcast accusation and deliberately refused to enter his defense. So how has his attitude recently actually helped this case, or helped to foster or fast track this conviction that we saw today?
There is not a law that says that insult is a crime. Nothing. Otherwise, almost all the people in Lagos will be charged to court, because go to the road on the street of Lagos, you will receive enough dose of insult. You will receive enough dose of insult. Go anywhere, in every office. The insult that we see on the floor of National Assembly, where they even brawl, fight, beat, has anybody taken them to court on criminal allegation? The insult that we saw just yesterday at PDP headquarters, where people were insulted and some of them beaten, how many people have been dragged to court on criminal allegation. That is why in law, we are not talking about sentimentalism. We are talking about law. There is what we call law of thought. If you blaspheme me, or you insult me, or you demean my integrity, or you even write against me, when the Nefertiti wrote against Chief Ahmed Babalola, we rose in unison and said there is nothing like criminal defamation. Defamation is a law of thought. How did it end? They solved it politically. They solved it administratively. They took back their issues and resolved it the way and manner we expected that it should be resolved. That was the one that was written. Not to talk of the one that was voiced. If anybody can, in all jurisdictions around the world, it's only in an environment where you have a maximum dictatorship, like in North Korea or in China or in Vietnam, that you cannot raise your voice and say anything against the maximum leader. In a democracy, you can insult your leader if you feel that his policies are not good. The only thing your leader has to do, if he feels so bad about the insult they are verbally giving him, I'm talking about verbal insult, you will be taken to court. You go and defend yourself. How many times have people called President Bola Ahmed Tinubu a drug baron and a criminal? How many of them have been taken to court? Because the president understands the nature of democracy. That it is not at the backing of every little law that you begin to build cages. Otherwise, the entire country will be in cage. What is the freedom that people enjoy in democracy? President Donald Trump was running for an election. Some people made an effigy of Trump with a very little ball and took it to Times Square. If you know how busy and how elitist Times Square is in New York, Trump image was kept there with a little ball, naked image of Trump. Did he take anybody to court? That is democracy. And the very moment you assume position of leadership, you should expect that such things will be thrown at you. Such pebbles will be thrown at you. And that is why, how many times have Reno Mokri been taken to court on criminal insult against people like Peter Obi and the rest of them? Even the one he insulted Tinubu before Tinubu became president, that are in print, that are still there in the internet. The one that Daniel Bwala insulted Tinubu massively. How many times had Tinubu taken him to court? Look, President Muhammad Buhari suffered from military hangover and the disdain against Nnamdi Kanu and forgot the fact that we are in a democracy. That we are in a democracy. And he now procured such appendage against IPOB, just targeted at Nnamdi Kanu, so that he will be given such trial. What I expected is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu would have used the opportunity of his office to continue to right the wrongs of President Muhammad Buhari. Nigeria is what it is today because of the terrible leadership of Buhari, whose government brought in the so-called the terrorists that have become bandits. It is open, it is in the public domain, it is not arguable, and today, how can anybody continue to build on a wrong past? We expect that when the past is wrong, you begin to correct it. We expected correction of the years of the 8 years of Buhari's government under the present government. But unfortunately, the president does not seem to understand the dynamics. Well, if he will still do something about it, now the court has given its judgment, and let us see whether Mr. President will extend his crucial pardon to Nnamdi Kanu, because when we pardoned even some notorious criminals some months ago, Nigerians rose in unison and said, the very man that deserves pardon has not been given pardon. You are now pardoning those who really don't deserve pardon. And the response from the government is that Nnamdi Kanu has not been convicted, so he didn't deserve pardon. Today he has been convicted, and let us see whether the government will go ahead and extend pardon to him or not. Look, the whole incidences around Nnamdi Kanu is built around politics, nothing more than politics. Orchestrated by the anger in Buhari And that is what we are seeing today.
Bryce Fred and Zako, a few weeks ago, Omoyele Sowore and also his lawyer told us that there is a plan to actually convict Nnamdi Kanu and have the people of the Southeast bargain for his release in order for it to be used like as a political bargaining chip to get the votes of the Southeast come 2027 and beyond. Do you believe that is what is playing out here?
Well, from when the witch cries in the night and the baby dies in the morning, not to think that is a nexus. But what will happen is, just only time will tell whether their clairvoyance is correct or whether they were just making a prophetic statement or not. Only time will tell. For me, all I have seen is that Nigerian judiciary is once again brought to the searchlight, the eye of the people, and there has been a travesty of justice. As far as I am concerned, anybody can have his or her opinion. My opinion is that Nnamdi Kanu has not been treated well by the Nigerian state. If he committed the offense of insulting another person, charge him under the appropriate law. I have never seen in any part of the world where somebody will insult his president and they will term it terrorism. I have never seen anything like that.
Barrister Fred Nzako, if you believe that the judiciary is compromised and his lawyers say they are heading to the appeal court, do you believe then that they would get a different judgment at the appeal court? Because the Federal High Court right now has said that there is uncontroverted evidence from the prosecution to show that he carried a preparatory act of terrorism, the threats of violence and killings, the declaration of a sit at home in the Southeast, in his many broadcasts. All of this constituted acts of terrorism. Would they get a different judgment from the appeal court if you believe that the judiciary is compromised?
Chairman, the word compromise may be misunderstood, so I don't want to go there. Because once I say I don't want to even use that word compromise, you can use any other term. The one I prefer to use is that there is a travesty of justice. But in criminal adjudication, there is what we call actus reus and mens rea. The mens rea, the actus reus follows mens rea. Mens rea means reason behind the action. The action itself is the actus reus. These are the two major ingredients of criminal adjudication. And if both are not connected, you cannot ground criminal conviction, because the intention must match the action. If the actus reus in Nnamdi Kanu's case was for him to get the state to conduct a referendum so that the people, his own people, will determine in the referendum whether they want to continue to belong to the Nigerian state or not. Referendum was conducted in 1963 to determine whether the Midwest was to be carved out of the old Western region. And Nigerians, that was 1964, yes. And Nigerians in unison voted in that favor. And there was Midwestern states carved out of the old Western state. That was the first referendum that was conducted in Nigeria. All over the world, there are referenda conducted. In the Brexit was a product of referendum. In Catalonian Republic in Spain, there was a referendum for them to decide whether to stay in Spain or not. So it is it is even recognized by United Nations and all over the world. And then the Kanu has been asking for that referendum. It will need for the government to brace up and ask the people, where do you want to go? There's nothing wrong with it. The agitation for self-determination is a fundamental right of every human being. You determine where you want to be. Once the determination is in unison, then it becomes a fair comply. So at the end of the day, if you are now forcing this marriage in Nigeria, that even the Southwest, they are not happy, the South, they are not happy, the North Central is not happy, otherwise if Southwest was happy, people like Professor Banji Akintoye will not be agitating for Yoruba nation. People like Sunday Igboho, Sunday Adeyemo aka Sunday Igboho, will not be agitating for Yoruba nation. People like Azik Anakaboro, as far back as 1961, will not be advocating for freedom for his people in the south area. People in the north central will not be agitating. Even in the north, far north, in the northwest, even Sir Ahmadu Bello himself, the late Sadwana, had once told the people, the British colonialists, that they were not ready for independence. Instead, that the southern Nigeria could go their way. It was Britain that continued to midwife and this forced marriage that has not been working from day one. And everybody has noticed it, that they have not been working. Now, the 1914 forced marriage that is now bedeviling Nigerian progress today, all this sabotage, internal sabotage you see all around the country, in the military, in the economy, in education, in even in the judiciary, in the legislature, is because Nigeria is not one. We have brought the template. Let us restructure this country along the line of true fiscal federalism, so that there could be pockets of small nations inside the bigger nation called Nigeria, and just like United States of America, will be making progress. Oh, they don't want, because the oil in the south has not dried up. Meanwhile, the rich mineral resources in the north are there being stolen by foreigners. And we are here thinking that we are wise as a country. Nigerians are not doing themselves any good under this forced marriage. And Nnamdi Kanu now says, look, let us sit down and negotiate our existence the same way it was done in 1959 conference. The London conference of 1959 was the only time that leaders of Nigeria sat together to negotiate our existence as a nation. And that bettered the 1960 independence constitution that led to the first republic that was truncated by soldiers in 1966. Are we going to remain in darkness? Are we going to remain in the wilderness? Even when the rest of the world is moving ahead of us, and even when knowledge and the technology has shown the direction of light that we should go. So all that you see in Nigeria today is lack of will on the part of leaders to be able to save this country from the doldrums. People like Nnamdi Kanu, he is not a national leader. He calls himself the leader of his people, the indigenous people of Biafra. It is not everybody in the southeast supports him. It is understandable. But let the majority decide where they will be. And that has been his advocacy. How can such advocacy be termed terrorism? Did Nnamdi Kanu plan coup? Did he execute any coup? Did he protest to push the government? So what has he done that he will be tried for terrorism? Meanwhile, for terrorism law that had long been abrogated in 2022. I told you about that of 2011. It was repealed in 2022. And then the company is saying, show me the law with which you are trying me. The government and the courts, the judicial system, have not been able to show him the law. In as much as his conduct in court can be said to be rascally, in as much as his conduct in court could be disruptive, look at the foundation. What has caused it? As a matter of fact, some people have even started alluding to the fact that, are you sure this long detention has not started affecting the psychological balance of Nnamdi Kanu? But be that as it may, we expect that you separate the wheat from the chaff. You separate the issues from the peripherals. What are the main issues, and what was the basis for the trial and the conviction? The good thing is that he has an option and an opportunity to go to the Court of Appeal and to again further go to the Supreme Court. So there is and finally an opportunity of being granted pardon by Mr. President. So for those who are worried, who feel that the rain has started falling, or that there is no end to quench this flood, they should not bother so much, because we have a robust judicial system that will take care of any infraction that may have been seen today the Federal High Court.
All right.
The Court of Appeal will have an opportunity to right the wrongs, and the Supreme Court will have the ultimate opportunity to set everything correct. And Mr. President, as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, on whose table the buck stops, will have the final say in all of this. Because for every prosecution, it is being done on behalf of the federal government, on behalf through the office of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister for Justice. Let there be justice. Let justice be ministered to every Nigerian that deserves it. And for those who don't deserve it, let them be meted with adequate sanction and punishment. We know who don't deserve it, and we know who deserves it. Let justice be done in Nnamdi Kanu's case.
Thank you so much, Barrister Fred and Zako, for your legal perspective to the issues this evening. I do appreciate you for joining us.
Many thanks.
All right, then enjoy the rest of your evening. You have been listening to the World News at 6, right here on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. Just before we wrap up, let's take a look at the top stories again. You heard that Israeli strikes across Gaza has killed 25 Palestinians. Court sentences Nnamdi Kanu to life imprisonment. All schools shut down in 4 choir LGAs amid potential terrorist attacks. And the ADC blasts Tinubu government for linking Trump to terror attacks. That is a wrap on the World News at 6. My name is Chioma Innocent. Good evening and thank you for listening. Do stay tuned. The Evening Rush will come up at exactly 7 p.m.
Thank you. Here is a very, very vital information, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take back your health.